Akhtar Meher Baba ki jai. Um, Mama ji, why don't you read the three
Yes,
oh,
yes.
three couplets if you're okay? Let's start with you.
Okay. Avtar Meher
Jai Baba.
Baba ki jai. Three of Meher Baba's favorite couplets of Hafiz, a mystical Persian poet. Befitting a fortunate slave, carry out every command of the master without any question of why and what. About what you hear from the master, never say it is wrong, because, my dear, the fault lies in your own incapacity to understand him. I am the slave of the master who has released me from ignorance. Whatever my master does is of the highest benefit to all concerned. Hafiz, Avtar Meher Baba
Meher
Ki
Baba
Jai.
ki jai. Yes, thank you so much. So, um, where are we? Let's start with the Trello board in a second. To open it. Oh, it's open. I just have to move it. Yeah. So, like we saw last time, we are down to the last three chapters of the part two of Listen Humanity. And I think it's a good time to actually say this is only part two. But this whole thing will go away once we move them into their appropriate places. So, anyway, so we'll take up attitudes for aspirants and other groups. And hopefully, if we finish that today, then we go into eighth chapter, which is love and God. Yeah. So with that, let's get to the PDF. The PDF is here. Let me go to a single scroll. Yeah. So it's attitudes for aspirants and other groups. So let me start and read for a bit. Or Norm, you're in a position to read. You can start, whichever. Okay, I will start.
Jai Baba.
Avtar,
Jai Baba.
yeah,
You, I'll read as we go along. Thank you, Jai Baba.
okay. Jai Baba. Avtar Meher Baba Ki Jai, Chapter 7, Attitudes for Aspirants and Other Groups. In previous chapters, general outlines have been given of the sufferings which finally impel the individual to embark upon the journey. In addition, the major paths and high roads were described by which a great majority of the seekers travel, and the states and stages through which the aspirant gradually progresses were briefly sketched. The entire spiritual process should never be regarded as one that can be described in intellectual terms, grasped by the mind, and followed as a personal discipline. In many ways, it constitutes the abandoning of all previous means by which the individual had thought to achieve lasting peace. In other ways, it is the essentializing and enlightened use of those same methods, but with a new sense of their utility. What same methods are being referred to here? So he says, I'll read this paragraph again. The entire spiritual process should never be regarded as one that can be described in intellectual terms, grasped by the mind, and followed as a personal discipline. In many ways, it constitutes the abandoning of all the previous means by which the individual had thought to achieve lasting peace. In other words, it is the essentializing and enlightened use of those same methods, but with a new sense of their utility. So, are these methods renunciation? Are these methods silence? Are these methods meditation? Are these methods that's what he's referring to? So, the person on the path had already used those methods, but was not able to get the desired result because he did not know their true values. And now, once he really embarks on the path and he knows the true values and true meanings of these methods, he's able to get better impact. That is that what one needs to make of this.
Maybe it
Yeah.
also projects the idea that each one has his own way. He finds it on his own and then moves
Also,
ahead.
yeah. Let's continue. One of these points of confusion concerns his attitude towards intellectuality, science, and technology. If the spiritual quest is to be real, it cannot be deflected by an obsession with this vital nerve network of modern civilization. In some ways, the aspirant must place it in proper perspective with the totality of human development and thereby be neither hypnotized nor be repelled by it. Intellect is reserved, so to speak, by nature for man. To have intellect, one must be a human being. Regardless how keen and quick that intellect may be, though, it will always remain just one of the stepping stones to wisdom, inspiration, illumination, knowledge, and at last realization of truth. To keep playing on the stepping stone, however polished it may be, is like sitting tight on a heap of hoarded treasure. Very beautiful analogical description. But let's see that sequence. So we start from once the intellect is ready, then the stepping stones are wisdom. You move to inspiration, illumination, knowledge, and at last realization of truth. And then he says the analogy that I like to keep playing on the stepping stone, however polished it may be, is like sitting tight on a heap of hoarded treasure. I think if not now, this analogy will be very relevant when we were kids, right?
No,
So
that
anyway,
last
This is also
sentence,
there's another analogy which Baba gave was sitting at the shore of the sea, which is there in everything and nothing, I think. Small
okay,
book. Yeah, so
this
you need to deep dive to find the diamonds, To find the
correct,
treasure, one needs to deep dive. So sitting on the
deep
shore
dive,
doesn't help.
correct. And also, just because you found something good, the human mind always, likes to, um, y- uh, what should I say, hold on to it, show off, and say that it's a moment of pride and I mean it's this age-old animalistic trait of being able to prove something as being someone or ourselves as being superior, right? So when you get something, there's a pride in acquisition. So even in those yeah, wisdom, inspiration, illumination, knowledge, we get a false sense of identification with that and get excited about it and sit on the hoard of those stepping stones, which is getting us nowhere. Mamaji, you were saying something.
that sentence, if you analyze, this also refers to the stages or the path on the path. And also, uh, I feel it also hints at the must at different levels. So they are stuck at some level. So they are sitting on the path, but they are not moving. That's why
Yes,
Baba came to their help and then made them go ahead. I think.
yes, yes, correct.
It's like you know there is a song of Madhusudan which says, Raah mein baithe khel anokhe man lalchawat mera. So on the way to the path, you have so many entanglements, and then you get attracted
Mm.
towards them, and you feel that that's something that is I have already achieved. But the real treasures are much beyond and far away.
and sadly need more effort, need more sustained effort and dedication. Let's continue. Like everything else,
Yeah,
intellect
that's
can be,
where the guru helps. Yeah, sorry.
yes, absolutely,
That's where the guru helps
absolutely.
because you feel that you are, tied up on the way. Yeah, yeah, Baba.
And he unlocks and moves us along. And one of the best examples of that is what Mamaji said, which is the Mus, who not only are, I mean, they're less about the false ego. In our cases, more likely what he is describing is the false ego having you wait in these stepping stones. But in the case of the Mus, it it's their love and their inability to see through where they are. And that's where the need for the master's push is even more acute. And that's exactly what he has come and done, right, for that. Let's continue. Like everything else, intellect can be used as well as misused. The deeper the intelligence, the greater one's responsibility to discriminate between essential and non essential, service and disservice, progress and retrogression. The task of the aspirant is to use intellect as a tool, not to be overcome by it. Often, one hears in religious discussion of the opposition between matter and spirit. There is no fundamental opposition between matter and spirit. Like the closely knit elements of life and form in a person, the spiritual and material aspects of human life are closely united. Realization of this would eliminate erroneous contrasting concepts such as God and man, one and many, light and darkness, all of which spring from the illusion of duality. The fundamental link between spirit and matter can be seen in the necessary connection between ideas and deeds. Mere playing with spiritual ideas without putting them into action is as unproductive as emphasizing the material at the expense of the spiritual. The simplicity of the real solution to all problems makes that solution increasingly baffling. I read that line again. The simplicity of the real solution to all problems makes that solution increasingly baffling. The real solution lies in the elimination of all self interest. This makes man practical in the truest sense of the word and gives him strength to face the facts concerning body and soul. The aspirant need not worry about the opposition between spirit and matter, but should rather concern himself with the proper use of the one as the vehicle of the other. Then he will realize that higher ideals which relate to the actions of everyday life. The living spirit behind love, service, and brotherhood then blossoms out in accomplished deeds and is no longer empty words and academic theories reserved for armchair practice. God's infinite beauty, power, and bliss are experienced with full consciousness in art, science, literature, nature, and all walks of life. Although the unconscious slavery of modern man to the industrial age is a serious matter, the emancipation of mankind from physical and economic slavery is a comparatively easy affair. The real slavery, because it is the most cruel and destructive of all, is the intellectual bigotry which claims to possess an exclusive monopoly on all truth. It is people obsessed by such a belief who, when they happen to be in a position of material power, hasten the downfall of a laboriously built civilization or the disintegration of a living religion. Very, very profound. So one even the wrong leader can slide the cause of a religion, the cause of spirituality in a very bad way. So a living religion can be demolished, focus on spirituality can be diminished by uh, and Baba says it's a laboriously built civilization, and that also can be destroyed. Anyway, we learned that in the prior chapter, in the same book, where we understood what society is and societal structures are, and how souls, individual souls, work together, not just in times of war, but in general as well, right? I will continue. Man can be redeemed from all types of bondage: physical, mental, spiritual, social, political, moral, sooner or later. But the redemption of man from the self-imposed shackles of intellectual self-sufficiency, uncritically accepted ideals, and a dry religious heritage is a task which is well nigh superhuman. Here is the real task of the aspirant: to pierce through his own layers of self imposed self sufficiency and insensitivity so that he may expose a layer of vital awareness to the world about him, which would teach him if it could. Often, the aspirant is concerned in the early phases of his awakening by his attitude towards established religions and their rituals. All of these have a tendency to encourage the spirit of love and worship, and as such, they help to a limited extent in wearing out the ego shell in which human consciousness is caught. But if they are followed unintelligently and mechanically, the inner spirit of love and worship dries up. Then they harden the ego shell instead of wearing it out. Rituals and ceremonies cannot carry one very far towards the path. And if they are unintelligently followed, they bind us as much as any other unintelligent action. In fact, when they are deprived of all inner life, they are in a sense more dangerous than any other unintelligent action because they are pursued in the belief that they help towards God realization. Due to this element of self delusion, lifeless forms and ceremonies become a sidetrack to the path. Through mere force of habit, one can become so attached to these external forms that intense suffering may be required to dispel their imaginary value. So it becomes so much of habit that even to dispel their imaginary value, we may undergo intense suffering. And that's not unusual, right? So there are a lot of people who are not able to let go of rituals that they've been doing from their childhood, and those rituals they're not able to shake off at all, and they feel very attached to it. So it can lead to suffering just to say that, oh, this is worthless, don't do it anymore, and the guy will never accept it so easily. Right? Anyway, let's we discussed this a lot earlier as well, so I think Baba is clarifying it very clearly here on the role of rituals. Often the aspirant becomes discouraged when he begins to understand how very long and difficult the path is. But these are persons who are concentrating only on jumping to the final goal and have not yet been caught up in the absorbing challenges which call for the greatest ingenuity at every step of the way. When the aspirant meets the challenge of life's game, it becomes so exhilarating that there is little inclination to worry whether the goal is one or a crore of lifetimes away. Healthy approach to life contains the automatic answer to pessimism over the distance to be traveled. This paragraph is very important for all of us because we keep complaining, saying, at least to myself, the the length and the complexity that lies ahead in the spiritual path is always considered a deterrent, right? So Baba says, when the aspirant meets the challenge of life's game, it becomes so exhilarating that there is little inclination to worry whether the goal is one or a crore of lifetimes away. A healthy approach to life contains the automatic answer to pessimism over the distance to be traveled. So it's a game. And that's the right time Kama joined because he's the one with the game analogy. Yeah, Mamaji. Oh, I thought you unmuted to say something. The man of the world believes that to have understood a thing intellectually is to have learned it. The true lesson in action, though, involves the wearing out of the sanskaras and the wants they engender. So, a mere intellectual or academic understanding of something is useless. True lesson is in action. To learn in this sense, it is not enough to comprehend intellectually. Learning may be a lengthy process which moves slowly through many, many repetitions of difficult situations. Learning has not been accomplished until one has been freed from all emotional entanglements. This is almost, if not entirely, impossible without the aid of a master. It is for this reason that when the aspirant realizes the master's true contribution, he greets the master with much joy. All action
On this,
except
there
that
is,
which,
yeah,
yeah,
on this, there is one song which talks about the same thing is जब मिहर के सिवा कुछ दिखेगा नहीं when you don't see anything except God होगी आसान मंजिल न भटकन कहीं you will not get astray on the path जब मिहर के सिवा कुछ दिखेगा नहीं होगी आसान मंजिल न भटकन कहीं जाएगा जब पहुंच मंजिले मीम पर तुझे हर जगह बस दिखे मेहर ही मेहर and it says आप कर लेगी मंजिल तुम्हारी फिकर the manzil destination itself will find you rather than you finding the destination just hold on to hands of the master. Yeah, Baba.
wonderful. For sure. Yeah. I continue. All action except that which is intelligently designed to attain God realization binds consciousness. It is not only an expression of accumulated ignorance, but also a further addition to that accumulated ignorance. Sometimes the pilgrim becomes so weary of recognizing that each act, instead of unwinding a knot in the inner being, has only tightened it harder, that he wonders whether it is wise to continue a life of action. In many ways, inaction is preferable to unintelligent action, for it has at least the merit of not creating further sanskaras. Even good action creates sanskaras and adds to the complications created by past actions. Very important point. All life is an effort to achieve freedom from self created entanglement. It is a desperate struggle to undo what had been done in ignorance, to throw away the accumulated burden of the past, to seek rescue from the debris piled high from temporary achievements and failures. Life strives to unwind the limiting sanskaras and find release from the mazes of its own making, to ensure that its further creations might spring directly from the heart of eternity and bear the stamp of the unhampered freedom and intrinsic richness of being that knows no limitation. Action that is aimed at attaining God is truly intelligent and spiritually fruitful because it brings release from bondage. I repeat, action that is aimed at attaining God is truly intelligent and spiritually fruitful because it brings release from bondage. It is second only to that action which springs spontaneously from the state of divine knowledge itself. All other forms of action, however good or bad, and however effective or ineffective from the worldly point of view, contribute to a bondage of the soul and as such are inferior to inaction. Inaction is less helpful than intelligent action, but it is better than unintelligent action, for it amounts to the non doing of what which would have created a binding. I repeat this line. inaction is less helpful than intelligent action, but it is better than unintelligent action, for it amounts to the non-doing of that which would have created a binding. The transition from unintelligent action to intelligent action, that is, from binding karma to unbinding karma, is often through inaction. This is the stage when unintelligent action has stopped because of critical doubt, and intelligent action has not yet begun because adequate momentum has not been achieved. This special type of inaction, which plays a definite part in progress on the path, should not be confused with ordinary inaction that springs from inertia or fear of life. The state of inaction that springs from critical doubt gives way sooner or later to intelligent action, and intelligent action in turn is dissolved in the final goal of perfect inaction. Perfect inaction does not mean inactivity. When self is absent, one achieves inaction in one's every action, however excessive it be. Various of the yogas, such as Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga, can be instrumental in achieving the end of all action by practicing inaction in the midst of intense activity. The only way to live a life of absolute inaction is to surrender completely to a perfect master. Then one dies entirely to oneself and lives only for the perfect master, acting and fulfilling the dictates of the beloved one. Each group, age group, each profession, each race has its own problems in pointing itself towards the beginning stages of the path. The following brief messages are intended for various of these groups. So before we go to the group, can I just find that slide which we did for inaction? Maybe see that together.
Kartik, can you please read a little bit slower?
Sure, sure. I'm sorry
Yeah.
if I was running away with it.
That's okay. I didn't want to interrupt you, but now that you stopped, I can suggest.
Sure, sure, sure.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm downloading. Where is it good to download? I don't know. Just give me 1 second. I'm trying to pick those. Let's try it up. Yeah, there it is. So classification of action and inaction, what we just read about. So spiritual steps are obviously perfect master, or like it is described in the text here, the spontaneous action coming from the divine is spiritual. Obviously, intelligent action and intelligent inaction both are more spiritual. The less spiritual options are unintelligent action and unintelligent inaction. Now, how does one move from one to the other? So if you see that you start from, so if you see the slide, you start from the right end and go towards the one. The one everybody will not reach. Spontaneous action is only reserved for the perfect master and the divine. But we have to start from 5 and go up and make our way. Maybe I should reverse this slide to go from left to right. This is a little obtuse. Anyway, so like we read just now, unintelligent action stems from fear or inertia or lethargy, which is not good. It's not spiritual. Then from that you go to unintelligent action. You just blindly do stuff without thinking. And rituals also fall in that. Rituals can degenerate. So Baba says rituals, when done with the heart and the recognition of the true value, is fine. But rituals and even prayers can degenerate to unintelligent actions. And unintelligent action creates sanskaras. Then you go to intelligent action. Between stages 2 and 3, uh, very gifted, evolved behavior from masters. Okay, so this is yeah, this is tough to achieve, right? So you go from actually it should be between 2 and 4. This is on the right on the top. If you see the first line, it says first line on intelligent action, it says 2 and 3. It should be 2 and 4. So it's a evolved behavior where you understand and decide not to act. The phrase that was used in the last in the reading from a few minutes back was inaction in the midst of intense activity. So I'll actually go back to that. So Baba says, yeah, see here. Various of the yogas, such as Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga, can be instrumental in achieving the end of all action by practicing inaction in the midst of intense activity. Right? And the other point he makes, yeah, inaction is less helpful than intelligent action, but it is better than unintelligent action. So that's why it's in between both of them. For it amounts to the non-doing of what which would have created a binding. And he continues, the transition from unintelligent action to intelligent action, that is from binding to unbinding, is often through inaction. That's what is said in the first line. Let's now go back to this. Then you move to intelligent action. This is the best. This is the best form of action as it helps you progress, responds to past sanskaras, and hence dissolves sanskaras. And I should add, does not add new sanskaras. Oh no, it does add newer sanskaras. We just learned that if you go to the reading here, all other forms of action, however good, I'm reading from the first line, however good or bad, and however effective or ineffective from the worldly point of view, contribute to a bondage of the soul, and as such are inferior to inaction. Right? So everything creates a binding, which means creates a sanskara. So even the intelligent action creates sanskara, but it is less harmful. Rather, for human beings, for people on the path, intelligent inaction and intelligent action is what we need to maximize in every breathing moment of our lives. Right? So, any thoughts and reaction before we go to the message for the youngsters, which somebody else can take up and read from this point?
Uh, I have a
I
point
have,
here.
yeah, I'm sorry. I have one comment.
Okay,
Somebody
you
else
first,
also
then
wanted to make comment.
yeah. So you first, and then we do Mamaji. Go ahead.
Uh, it is important to know in a simpler terms that unintelligent action, okay, or which produces that unintelligent inaction or inaction, that it's it's equivalent to ignorance. When we don't know that such and such desires create a great binding, yet we fall into its trap from our ignorance, not knowing. Well, this is a case that we really don't know. We are still responsible for that. I did have a dilemma with this when I came to Baba. I said, well, if we don't know about it, why are we taken responsible for that? But that's the divine law.
Absolutely. A good point.
Yeah.
Very good point. So that explains why we are in this journey, and that explains even the fact that you are not thinking about spirituality, you are not thinking about the real values, is a problem, but it's out of your control. And it also means the more important criteria, you are not ready. Let's give credit to that as well, right? You need to get
That you're not
ready.
ready. Yeah.
Yes, you need to get
That's true.
ready to be getting on the path. Yes,
Or
Mamaji.
to be recipient, because
Exactly.
God is always there. He
Correct.
always knocks on our door, but we forget to open the door, or we don't even
Yes.
notice that he's knocking. Yeah.
And it means
Jai
that
Baba.
we are completely in the throes of Maya. So you can say that you don't know, but what do you don't know and why you don't know? You are completely in the grip of Maya, and hence you don't know. What you see is Maya ridden.
That's true.
Yeah.
Jai Baba.
Yeah. I thought Mamaji, then you know.
No, no.
Mamaji also had
I have a
something to say.
question.
Okay.
I have a
Okay. Go
question.
ahead. Go ahead.
So can you simplify it? What am I supposed to do to kind of get out of this whole thing? Intelligent, unintelligent, knowing, not knowing. What is the action? What should I do after this call so that I go on the correct path?
Understand that every breathing moment, there is a possibility of sanskaras being added to. And every action of yours, and action here does not mean action of just physical, but action of word, thought, and deed
Mhm.
can create sanskaras, right? And every next moment after this call, please try to apply the principle of only doing intelligent action or intelligent inaction. Everything
Okay.
else is,
So I have to
um,
distance myself from this world and
yes,
look at it as an observer and don't get carried away by it. Is that what I'm supposed to do?
yes, that's ideal. If you can do completely, then you're home. So if you see
Okay,
this
I mean at least I know
prayer,
what not to do.
so if you see this, your the left is what we need to go towards, and left me be the first to learn is out of bounds. Oh, perfect master. Okay, it's not for us,
Okay.
and it's for divinity. So the second and third in the left side is what every waking moment should be full of. Now,
Mm.
after this call, when you do a thought exercise of how to put that in practice, you'll see it's very, very simplistic, but very, very difficult because
Mm.
everything does has binding, and we have to apply these principles and test and react to every stimuli that we face. But good question. I'm glad you asked it.
Jai Baba, thank you. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm on it.
All the very best.
Thank you.
Panda
Okay.
clear.
Yes, Mamaji.
Um, if this slide, I haven't say, inkling to say that. No, the previous slide you had. So, can we coin or look at intelligent and unintelligent in a different way? What I see here is unintelligent is the evolutionary tendency of ego included activities. So you are driven by ego drive. So your actions are all dependent on that, and it leads to a lot of sanskaras and multiple layers of sanskaras adding up and all that. So when we realize this and then become less and less egoless or say egoless, then it is becoming intelligent. So being intelligent is becoming less of ego every step. So that is in one way I see it in that way. If you go to the next slide please. You had the fourth step. So here action and inaction. So what is action is ego-driven activity can lead you into binding all the time. So each knot you are creating another further knot. So inaction is not doing that, or with the help of or the grace of the master, you may untie that what is already tied up. So that is how I look at it. Unintelligent and intelligent, we can juxtapose as ego or less of ego all the time. Each step less and lesser of ego. Jai Baba.
Yeah. I think for me, it is simply that whatever action I'm doing, Baba is watching me. So, and anything that I do is in his service and surrender it to him, whatever may be the result. I think these two principles are good enough for me to go on for, I think, many lives. I don't know, 100, 200, how many?
No,
500.
if that is your principle,
Yeah,
this will
that's
be your
simple.
last life.
I don't know. Thank you. But I'm saying even if I do these two things, that's enough actually, rather than a lot of analytics of the what we are talking. I think these two things are much simpler to understand and implement. Anything that and Baba wants us to be active. Baba wants us to do our duties. Baba wants us to be as humans. Get a big angry and be happy and smile and run and play everything. Baba wants us like that. So this is the way how I think we should live our life. Be friends, and not. If he is not looking for us to go to the Himalayas and leave everything away, and that there is no action, so there is no impressions and nothing. That's not the life that Baba is looking for. Jai Baba.
Karthik, I have a comment to make. Jay Baba.
Sure. Yeah, before that, Mahu, I think I like what Mamaji said, and I think I didn't understand it earlier. So he's making an important point. What he's saying is the absence of ego is equal to absence of intelligence in the action. Intelligence, as in with respect to this slide, right? So if you are so it's a counter to semantic understanding and use of words, but you're absolutely right? So when you do it intelligently, you're doing it without the ego. Thank you. Yeah, Mahu, your comment.
Yeah, actually, Baba explained the very same thing that Momoji said, with different terms. We just read it. By surrendering to perfect master, all our action or inaction, then it was very beautiful. You can always refer to it. We would be less thinking of ourselves and more of a master. What is ourselves? Our ego, because we pursue each other, we pursue us. I pursue myself as Mahu, okay? Because the mind identify with this physical body and the ego mind that is there. So the mind defines who am I, instead of the because it doesn't have that awareness. Instead of saying I am God, I'm not there. I'm saying I'm Mahu. You see all of that. So it's a process. But
Yes.
I just wanted to definitely I just wanted to say something about what Mera said. In a very simple term, just the way Mera was. That's why Baba liked her so much. And she said, every moment of your life, I'm paraphrasing, I don't remember exactly the words, but every moment of your life that you do not think of Baba or you do not remember him is a waste, is a total waste. In other words, you have come to this incarnation, and now that you are in touch with Baba, your job, your duty is to remember him and love him so he can help you out and take you out of the grip of Maya. Very similar, except that here is a different terminology, but I take that to be very similar in essence. Jebab.
Beautiful comment, right? So and that's So simple, but again, like I said to Norm, so difficult to achieve. But it is perfect. I mean, if you just like Sanjay ji also mentioned in his approach, he's saying bring Baba into everything, right? So uh, and every moment that's not is actually wasted. Perfect, brilliant, brilliant comment. Thanks for sharing that. I heard Kama unmuted say something. You had something to say, Kama? I would like you to comment and kind of provide an overview.
Oh,
Eh,
it's not
maybe he's-
that.
Oh, he's not there? Okay, I thought he did. When you were talking, Mama Ji, he did.
Uh-huh. Maybe.
Yeah.
No, he was here. Just now he's not there.
Oh, he's not there. Okay. Anyway, let's rotate and get somebody else to read message for youngsters who is willing and ready.
I am.
Mahu,
I
please
can
go
read,
ahead.
yes.
Please go ahead.
Okay.
Avtar Meher Baba ki jai.
Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. The title is Message for Youngsters. I remember very well when, not long ago, I was just like one of you. You little ones are especially dear to me. Children are innocent and free from vain egotism. Children have no low desires. When, after becoming free from all childishness, man really becomes childlike, he realizes God. Next page. Whether you like it or not, you must soon grow up and cease being childish. More and more, you must enjoy letting your teachers teach you and your elders lead you while you are growing into men and women. Unless you are willing to learn and ready to obey, they cannot help you as they would like to do. The whole, the whole of life is like playing the game of hide and seek, in which you must find your real self. I give my blessings that you may succeed in this realization that life is all time play. Isn't it? Okay, I like to read this. I give you my blessings that you may succeed in this realization that life is all time play. God alone is real and all else is false. And so you must try to love God who is within us all. To gain this love, you should try to be honest in your thoughts, words, and actions. To youth, it is the privilege of youth to be full of energy and hope, not being caught in any ruts. Your dreams of the future have the advantage of being inspired by an unfettered imagination. In the glow of a newborn love, or in the warmth of a newly cut enthusiasm, you are quick to respond to the call for action and sacrifice. Life would be poorer without these qualities that are predominantly present in youth. But if you are to derive the full benefit of the qualities with which you are abundantly endowed, you must also try to acquire some other qualities which are rare in youth. Hope should be fortified by a courage which can accept failure without upset. Enthusiasm should be harnessed by the wisdom that knows how to wait with patience for the fruit of action. Idealistic dreams about the future should be balanced by a sense of the realities of the present. and the glow of love should allow itself to be illumined by the full exercise of reason. It is easy for youth to be so absorbed in realizing the ideal that it becomes bitter against the present and the past. But it is as well to cultivate a spirit of idealizing the real while being appreciative of the heritage of the past. The world as it is may not seem to conform to the pattern which youth adores, but you must never forget that it is always good enough to merit your most loving attention. In your desire to improve the world, do not, by becoming bitter, surrender your right to be happy. I like to make a comment, Kartik, here. This is really, it's very clear, particularly in the West. I think Baba explains this message to the youngster. See, they pursue things differently. The way they pursue the ideals, um, they are probably doesn't they don't have enough patience, or they don't really appreciate the past as experiences to bring to the present and develop wisdom and so forth. That's why we do see the trend of rebellious. The young people here are very rebellious now, and they just think that they're the king and they can do anything, and they're against the establishment, they're against this, they're against that. So if they have a chance to be introduced to Meher Baba and read these words, they may live a better life. I mean, more peaceful life, I think. Anyway, I feel for them. Youth loves freedom,
Just
and
to add
therefore,
to that, just to add to
please,
your comment, I wish
sure.
Kama was here. He works a lot with the youth, and I think
Mm-hmm.
this is the message that we need to bring out to the youth verbatim, and I am sure it will make the impact on uh, those kids. It beautifully brings out the focus and the energy levels of the youth and how they should be harnessed in the right manner. I mean, it's timeless, right? Obviously, everything that Baba says is timeless, but I'm so enchanted by the relevance of this message to the youth, not just for today, but for all
Mm-hmm.
time, that we should
Yeah,
bring it out. And like as we speak, I'm going to take this to my son and make sure
yeah.
he reads it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
How does he, I mean, it's probably out of the scope of this, but how does he work? How does Kamo work with the youth? Um, I mean, how does he work? I mean, do they come
It's
to
out
him? He
of
goes, mhm.
No, it's not out of scope in that sense. What he actually does is tries to take Baba's message uh, packaged in a more relevant manner for the youth.
Uh-huh.
It's extended beyond. So it's basically discourses in a capsule relevant for young adults who would like to move towards building the right career, finding the right partner. And so, to make it palatable and more acceptable, he takes the career counseling and career shaping as the dominant theme. But the message
Oh,
is, yeah. So the message is Baba's messages. So wish he was online so he could have explained more about it. He has done this program in many places. He's from a very reputed institute in India, IIT, and he has a good network of people, and he has credibility, which gives him, which helps him open doors. So, and
good,
he
good.
also balances it to make sure that it's not seen like another Baba thing, which is what is the problem in India. So he plays down the Meher Baba aspect and brings it very, very subtly. And
Yes,
I
that's
think
very
that's
important.
beautiful. Yeah, that's beautiful. So
Mm.
he does expose Baba's name, expose Baba's photograph, but it's not a spiritual program, right? Because that's a put
Mhm.
off for many. Even institutions hesitate. But then, depending on the institutions, he has been a little more courageous as well. And he has worked with, I think, mostly young adults, 12 plus. But
Mm.
I, yeah, anyway.
Yeah, that's really good. But my experience is they really have to be ready, or else they
Absolutely.
reject the idea. You know.
So I'll tell you
Anyway,
something
that's a long.
very,
Mm.
I'll tell you something very irrelevant, right? So in my youth, I was so enamored with Indian culture and Indian music that I represented and in fact was one of the key members India-wide for an organization that promoted Indian culture and music, classical music, okay? And my fervent belief in my youth was if there is an audience of 1,000 people, and if we are able to strike a spark of the love for classical music in one amongst them in one concert, my goal is reached. And this was my personal goal, right? Not the goal of the organization that I represented. So, in that same way, what Kama is doing is not easy. And the numbers are going to be stacked not in his favor, but he has to keep it on. He has to keep going, right? And that one soul that's sitting in that crowd in the 12s and the 15s will make the connect and will wake up and move from what you said is being ignorant to being unignorant and open to spirituality. And that's all we need.
Yeah, and they're very unhappy, but they don't want to really
Realize
hear
it.
what their
Yeah,
source of unhappiness is. It's really tough. It's like a wall you're trying to get into. But
indeed.
Baba is working very hard at it, so soon things will be changed. Yeah,
Very, very
yeah,
soon. I agree. Sorry for the digression, but I hope it was for everybody else. Please continue.
yeah, yeah. Okay, I think I was in a last line, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Youth loves, yeah.
Youth, yeah. Youth loves freedom and therefore has a natural impulse to rebel. Oh, Baba talks about rebel. I had no idea he will be talking about the rebel. I just talked about the rebel. I mean, it's happening. Rebel against all authority. Can we go back and read this one more time? Just a sentence, please. Thank you. Youth loves freedom and therefore has a natural impulse to rebel against all authority. This is well and good, but you should make a real effort to keep free of the many illusions to which youth is particularly susceptible. True self expression need not include irreverence for others. Uh-huh. True criticism need not involve snobbishness or cynicism. True freedom need not manifest hostility or separateness. Freedom without responsibility is a doubtful boon. Freedom is worth having only where there is self restraint and willingness to cooperate with others. Youth is always willing to act and take risks. It should be allowed to yield freely to this fearless and imperative urge of life within. But while engaged in action, youth must take every care that it is creative and not destructive. Let your watchwords always be love and service. To students, artists, social workers, and public institution servants.
Before we go to the
Literacy.
next one,
Yeah,
the
sure.
next one, any
Mhm.
thoughts from anybody else? And I see Kama is back. You were missed, my friend. You were missing at the right time. We were talking about your work with the youth. Kama? Okay, anyway.
Yeah, yes, yes,
Uh,
yes. I can hear you because I was out of network connection. So, what was the thing about the
yeah.
youth?
No, no. So first thing, I thought earlier, maybe 20 minutes back, you were trying to say something after Mamaji's comment. Not sure if it was your voice. One. Second, the I was just we were reading and Mahu and I were talking about your work with the youth and how this is so perfectly relevant to be shared almost verbatim in those sessions to those that are ready and those that are not, and leave it to Baba to work on them through this message, right? So that's all we had. So any thoughts on so before we continue, any thoughts on action in action because I saw you commenting, and then your work with the youth. Why don't you introduce it?
Yes. Okay. So, first point is, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes. Go ahead.
Perfect. So, commenting on what Mama said and Sanjay said, see, action, inaction, these are all English words. And again, we always keep talking about contextual aspect. That's number one, right? So, for me, the word action, we all know is action of thoughts, words, or deeds. Good or bad, six variables, weak, strong, or powerful impressions. Number two, the moment we wake up in the morning, all the 8 million people are doing only two types of action. The moment people wake up in the morning,
Okay,
they
your
only do
audio
two
is
types
not
of
that
action.
great, huh?
Okay, sorry, I'm moving out and going towards the airport from Jabalpur. What I
Okay,
can do
keep
is,
going.
can you hear me now?
Yeah, keep going. Let's
With the
see. Yeah,
feedback. Yeah.
yeah. Keep going.
So,
But that's
so the point is that intelligent action and unintelligent action are the two activities that are conducted by human beings as soon as they wake up, which is in the form of thoughts, words, and deeds. So, to add on to Doctor, that intelligent action is about unwinding sanskaras, responding intelligently. And unintelligent action is reacting to your sanskaras, creating fresh new sanskaras. That is a technical way of looking at it. So if you're doing intelligent action, you're actually very self-aware about yourself. Like you're doing vipassana all the time, or what I call as meditation. Whether you're brushing your teeth, real meditation is every waking moment you're doing intelligent action, which is self-awareness. You're responding, not reacting, and you're consciously, unconsciously unwinding sanskaras. So that is the point about intelligent action and unintelligent action. And I believe that, Karthik, when you did the graph, I think that graphic chart that you have, maybe you can do it from left to right, like
Yeah, yeah.
XY
I already,
coordinate.
I
Okay,
already
great.
made that comment. I already made that. I realized that.
Yes, I heard that. It's like a hypotenuse kind of thing going from left to right to the top.
Yes, yes, yes.
So basically, I think we all are perfect examples of unintelligent inaction. When I used to live in New York, I used to spend like Saturday, Sunday with my wife was out of town. I would just sit and just smoke, drink, watch TV for 3, 4 movies at a time and do nothing. And one day I'll be back in action. So that was a form of lethargy, and all those unintelligent activities that we do and creating fresh sanskaras, even though it's a form of inaction. The next one's unintelligent, intelligent inaction. Unintelligent action, which is what 99% of most people do is they are either creating good karma or bad karma. As Baba said, good karma is like golden chains, and bad karma is like iron chains. So then, once you have the grace of a guru, and you realize that I need to stop reacting and respond intelligently because of understanding of sanskaras. So the transition state is intelligent inaction before you move towards intelligent action. So intelligent action in my book is like a CIR, contemplation, introspection, reflection of what I've been doing in the past what I have understood now, and now with the grace of the teacher, how can I convert the theory into practice? Which is what we are all doing. We are all ideally working on our intelligent action as much as possible, consciously, you know. So intelligent action is again unwinding sanskaras, because in the human form, we are only doing two things: unwinding sanskaras, that is responding intelligently, or spending sanskaras, which is reacting unintelligently. You know that winding sanskaras is up to the animal kingdoms. That's very clear. That's the divine thing. We can't do anything about it. We are now just spending sanskaras in the reincarnation state. All the sanskaras that you have experienced through the animal kingdom that needs to be spent in the human form, and then reach a tipping point where, with the grace of a master, you start converting that into intelligent action, which is where it comes into the subtle planes. And then coming to the student part, I can actually tell you, like, thanks to the internet and smartphones, technically we don't have to go to school or college. It's just a glorified nursery. And what I've observed is when I go to all these colleges, 80% of the time I tell people that you have to be practical in life. That is, you have to first take care of the Maslow self-actualization theory of roti, kapra, makan, food, shelter, clothing. As Karl Marx said, religion is the opium of the masses. Spirituality is also, spirituality is a real thing. But spirituality means balancing both material life and spiritual life, the outer life and inner life. But I can't be an idealist. I'm a perfect example. Once I went to college, I thought I want to become God, realized become a monk. Thanks to Baba, I realized that no, I got to go through the 4 stages or 7 stages of life. You have to get through the battering and hammering that goes on till you wake up and you realize that, okay, the real purpose of life is there is no goal except to dissolve the ego. So what I tell the students is basically the 80-20 rule: 80% how to cope up with the material life in the world, and 20% how to use the spiritual laws and try to have a balanced life. So I can go on, but if you have any questions, I'll share about it.
More power to you, Kama. Keep the work going with the youth and get this message of Baba to as many as possible. Yeah, thank you so much. So let's continue. Uh, and maybe we can also rotate to a last reader if anybody wants to read. Otherwise,
Yes,
Mahu can continue.
I will read now.
Okay, thanks, Mahu, and over to you, Mamaji. The
Sure.
students, artists, social workers, and public institution servants.
Jai
Hey, Baba.
Baba. Students, artists, social workers, and public institution servants. Literacy is not education, and education is not culture. And all these together do not constitute jnana or gnosis. This stands in a this stands in a class by itself, independent of any concomitant factors. Illiteracy and ignorance invite exploitation, but literacy can also become a willing tool in the hands of those who exploit. Education devoid of culture is inherently destructive, although on the surface it seems to represent progress. Since all types of people have claimed that their greatness constitutes culture, the word has become indefinite in the minds of the public. True culture is the result of spiritual values assimilated into life. True culture is the result of spiritual values assimilated into life. Therefore, you must keep before you the ideal that spiritual culture, which once developed, imparts life and beauty to all undertakings: educational, technical, industrial, social, moral, and political, and pierces through their differences to produce unity. This results in the development of the highest character in the life of a nation or individual. So I think this is a great message for all the politicians. All men in
Absolutely.
the
Absolutely.
all men in the flesh are unquestionably equal, yet no two men are equal. despite the fact that sun shines on the one world, sunshine is not the same the world over. In their hopes and their fears, men are the same everywhere, yet at a given moment, this one is antagonist to that one. Next page.
So true. So true.
Yes. Love for God, love for fellow beings, love of service, and love of self sacrifice. In short, love in any shape and form is the finest give and take in existence. Ultimately, it is love that will bring about the much desired equating of human beings all over the world, and without necessarily disturbing the inherently diverse traits of mankind. It is infinitely better to hope for the best than to fear the worst. Time is composed equally of night and day. In its inevitable course of ups and downs, the world is fast approaching once again a glorious dawn. My blessings to you all. So Baba gives a lot of hope all the time.
Yes, and more opportune. There's no more opportune time than now. The world needs this hope now. We are in the midst of possibility of deepening of the war, worsening of the global economy, and this hatred, this antagonism from one soul to another. And what better time to reaffirm this hope than now?
Yes. To Harijans and laborers, to think that work or profession is the basis for difference between men is to dream in the past and remain dead to the present. Dream in the past and remain dead to the present. In those things which represent, my screen became blank. Okay. In those things which represent true value in human heritage, all men are equal. Cleanliness of mind and body have never been and never can be the monopoly of any one class or creed. They should be aspired to and can be achieved by everyone. At the same time, it should be recognized that to maintain such purity in the face of increasing opposition from various directions will entail suffering. The spiritual status of any people is in direct proportion to its ability to suffer. Suffering should be intelligent and deeply penetrating. When people develop their spiritual outlook on life, they automatically increase their capacity to suffer. Selfishness multiplied by population results in war, exploitation, persecution, and poverty. Selflessness multiplied by population brings about peace and plenty. All the modern fads rampant in the guise of politics, economics, or materialism, communism, nationalism, and socialism must be judged by the criterion of selflessness. Whether you are religiously suppressed or politically oppressed, whether you are exploited economically or sweated industrially, the suffering you endure will determine your spiritual position. Nice rhyming sentence. Whether you are religiously suppressed or politically oppressed, whether you are exploited economically or sweated industrially, the suffering you endure will determine your spiritual position. Man made differences, like all other things made by man, make no time to change in changing times. No time to change in changing times. A great changeover is approaching in which rights must and will be restored, and in which responsibilities must also be shouldered. It is indeed great to be man, but it is far greater to be man to man. Irrespective of birth levels and belief tables, my blessing to all those who feel themselves oppressed, depressed, or suppressed for any cause whatsoever. It is indeed great to be a man, but it is far greater to be man to man. Irrespective of birth levels and belief tales, my blessings to all those who feel themselves oppressed, depressed, or suppressed for any cause whatsoever. General message. What is wrong with this world today? Such questions are bound to arise in thinking minds, but often the answers given are not completely honest. Diagnoses given and remedies adopted have all been biased, and so the situation remains vague and unresolved. The crux of the matter lies in the correct interpretation of the ancient word religion. The West has very little religion, and whenever one hears of it, it is either subservient to politics or at best an adjunct to material life. The East is suffering from an overdose of religion, and consequently it hankers desperately for material antidote. Religion in the West is synonymous with scientific progress, which is distinctive in its manifestation. Religion in the East and in India in particular has gone underground and been replaced largely by crude ceremonies, vague rituals, and lifeless dogmas. Instead of nourishing the seeds of peace and plenty, this subterranean religion tries to propagate communism, fanaticism, nationalism, and patriotism, which have now become bywords associated with leadership and greatness, suffering and sanctity. In short, religion is a living force. Religion as a living force has become obsolete. The urgent need of today to resuscitate uh, religion is to dig it out of its narrow, dark vault and let the spirit of man shine out once again in its pristine glory. The most practical thing in the world is to be spiritually minded. It needs no special time, place, or circumstance. It is not necessarily concerned with anything out of the ordinary daily routine. It is never too early or too late to be spiritual. It is just a simple question of having the proper mental attitude towards lasting value, changing circumstance, and avoidable eventualities, as well as a healthy sense of the inevitable. Spirituality is not restricted to, nor can it be restricted by anyone or anything, anywhere, at any time. It cannot be restricted by anything, anywhere, at any time. It covers all life for all time, and it can easily be achieved through selfless service and that pure love which knows no bondage and seeks no boundary. A mighty surge of this spirituality is about to sweep over the world. My blessings to you all. There is no more ready means by which the first outlines of the inner self can be known than through complete honesty. Honesty with one's fellow beings is the beginning step. From this, there cannot there cannot help but come honesty with oneself. It is heartening to find that even the worst of one's nature is not frightening, and that the very fact of having forced the worst in oneself gives the courage to look at the challenges of life with the path. Having achieved honesty and found courage, the sustaining self begins to reveal itself. To be honest is certainly not easy, for never before has dishonesty and hypocrisy been so rampant in the world as today. If the least hypocrisy creeps into one's thoughts, words, and deeds, God, who is the innermost self in us all, keeps himself hidden. Keeps himself hidden. Hypocrisy is a million-headed cobra. Today, there are so-called saints in the world who tell people to be honest and not hypocritical, yet they themselves are deeply involved in dishonesty. If you cannot love God and cannot lead saintly lives, then at least do not make a pretense of it. The worst scoundrel is better than a hypocritical saint. The worst scoundrel is better than a hypocritical saint. Honesty is not only a light on the inner path, it is also one of the most effective means for relief of the suffering which afflicts all, man or woman, rich or poor, great or small. Relief from all kinds of suffering is within ourselves if, in all circumstances and in every walk of life, we try to think honestly, act honestly, and live honestly. Infinite honesty is one of the aspects of God, and therefore the least hypocrisy in ourselves keeps us aloof from God. Infinite honesty is one of the aspects of God, and therefore the least hypocrisy in ourselves keeps us aloof from God. Simplicity and all it implies is another great aid in development of human love. Simplicity springs from humility, and humility is often confused with modesty. Modesty is weakness, but humility is strength. Therefore, a word of difference separates the two. The moment you say, I stay in all humility, the very use of the expression betrays your ego. Even though you believe that you are being humble, next page, please. You are expressing your egotism. The difficulty is not resolved even if you try with true honesty to express true humility. Inevitably, obstacles arise, such as the thought of what others may think of your expression of humility. No sooner is humility given expression than it is no longer humility. It is nonsense to give deliberate expression to humility. A life of humility is lived spontaneously and should not give rise to thoughts of either humility or modesty. As an example, suppose you start to clean a latrine, but you cannot help noting the smell. A janitor that has cleaned them all his life remains unaffected. The person who parades humility is like the one who notes the smell while cleaning a latrine. The person who lives the life of humility is like the sweeper who is immune to the odor and completely unworried about what others think of him. He actually lives the life of a janitor. To have to try to be humble is also nonsense. You must be so natural that your life becomes humility personified, which means all strength free from all weakness. To have to try to be humble is also nonsense. You must be so natural that your life becomes humility personified, which means all strength freed from all weaknesses. So whatever you are, express it unmindful of public opinion and the reaction of others. Be natural. If you are dishonest, do not try to hide yourself behind the curtain of honesty. This does not mean, though, that you should be dishonest. Okay. Above all else, be content with your lot, rich or poor, happy or miserable. Understand that God has designed it for your own good and be resigned to His will. Remember the present in the frame of the past and the future. You eternally were and always will be. You have had innumerable forms of man and woman, beautiful and ugly, strong and weak, healthy and sickly, powerful and helpless, and now you are here again in another form. Until you gain spiritual freedom, you will be invested with many such forms. So why seek temporary relief now which would only result in further binding later? Do not ask God for money, fame, power, health, or children, but seek His grace, and it will lead you to eternal bliss. One of the greatest things to possess is faith, which ultimately leads to conviction. And from conviction, one day arises realization. There are no two kinds of faith. Faith is the last thing to be labeled. The only question is whether one has strong faith or weak faith. Some manifest faith only to the point of acknowledging forms and ceremonies, while some go beyond this to seek the kernel and eschew the hull, believing either in the impersonal infinite existence or in the personal existence of one's own master. Thus, it is only a question of degree of faith. In wholehearted faith, relief will be found from the many sufferings which afflict man. We are already in possession of infinite power and happiness, but it is our way of life which prevents us from enjoying these eternal treasures of God. Faith can provide a key to attain them. Eventually, faith must give way to conviction, for after all, faith is only faith. There are two kinds of experience, external and internal. External experience can result through the gross media. What we actually see of the gross world with our gross eyes gives us conviction of a sort, but there are occasions when even this conviction is based on incorrect analysis. Thus, if we see a man drinking milk from a bottle under a toddy tree, we assume unconsciously that he is drinking toddy, which is incorrect. What is seen with the inner eye gives absolute conviction and can never be false. Such is the case, for example, when one sees with the inner eye that God is the infinite existence. A cheap intoxicating drink is commonly made in India from sap of toddy tree. Okay.
By the
And
way, it looks very much like milk. So that's the analogy.
yes. Therefore, what is really needed to give eternal conviction is not mere theorizing or reasoning or even faith, but actual inner experience. Once God has been realize there is no question of faith or even conviction, just as there is no question of man's needing faith to believe that he is a man. Having transcended the boundaries of faith, one finds oneself identified with the infinite and the oneself manifested everywhere. Having transcended the boundaries of faith, one finds oneself identified with the infinite and the oneself manifested everywhere. Okay. We are at the end of
Yeah,
the
I
chapter.
think exactly perfect timing to end the session. But I think it was a beautiful reading. Before we go, I have two tasks. We have to now decide where this chapter belongs, right? So
Jai Baba,
I
Jai
have
Baba.
my opinion. Yeah.
In all humility, in all honesty, in all humbleness, you're not supposed to say that, correct? Unconsciously
Yes.
comes out sometimes. Or
Yes. Perfect.
I would also say, like, instead of saying in all honesty or humbleness, I might as well say in all humiliation. I would like to say, right? That's
Yeah.
a different catch on it. But one of the things I've noticed, with people is, oh, you know what? I never lie. I never ever lie. Then I ask the person, why do you have to even say that? You know, it's just like saying in all honesty, in all humbleness. So that is like an interesting point that Baba says. It's all about self-awareness, how you even use words in your communication. Not to impress anybody, but to really mean what you say, and you're really self-aware. Jai Baba.
Good point. Good point. Okay. So where do we put this now? Where does attitudes for aspirants and other groups belong? It obviously belongs, I think, in spirit and matter, but I think it also belongs to action and inaction.
Yeah, there is
In yoga and
also new
meditation.
humanity. New humanity would be
Yeah,
accepted.
because of the messages, but I don't
The
know.
youth message, yeah, youth message goes
Yeah,
there actually.
yeah, youth and the Harijan and the society message goes
Yes,
there.
yes, yes.
It's less about stages of the path. The previous chapter was very clearly stages of the path, so we leave it there. But this belongs more to, so where is action and inaction? Yoga, it's coming under yoga. Oh, it's not under yoga. Wait a second. List
See,
yoga
meditation is
itself.
with intelligent action in a way. Real
Hmm.
meditation.
Yeah, so where does it belong? Or let's think about it. Let's think about it and slot it. There's no rush on that activity. Meanwhile, I have, like I was showing when you were talking, I switched the model to left to right, which is
Yeah,
what it should have been from the beginning. And I made that correction saying that between two and four,
yeah,
right? Between two and four.
yeah.
I think this is much
Kartik,
clearer.
today is also Mani's birthday.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, correct.
So
Yeah,
there's a lot of messages which are dropping in.
on Mani's
So there is a
birthday. Yes.
Baba's message which I just read.
Sure.
My sister Mani loves me very much. She doesn't worry about anything. She simply obeys me. From morning till night, she is working for Baba. She knows Baba is God and loves Baba as God. This is the matches a life of surrenderance and obedience to her beloved God person. Jai Baba.
Right.
Wonderful message to end the session. Any other thoughts,
Karthik,
or we can wrap up? Yeah.
Karthik,
Yes.
you need to change the number from 5 to 1
Should I?
and
Should
1 to
I?
5.
Or should I? Or leave it as one being the top?
That's
Oh, but
not,
then I had to change the summary. Yeah, I had to change the summary at the bottom.
yes, yes.
Please do not go.
Okay.
Jay Baba.
Yes.
Sanjay ji, you read that Hindi poem. Could you share it with us?
Which one? The one that I was speaking before?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's very sweet,
Yeah.
very nice.
Yes.
Yeah, please share. Thank you.
Yeah.
It was such a beautiful session. We have action points,
Yes.
inaction points. So all in Baba's love.
Yeah. Baba.
All right. Love
Yeah,
you
Baba.
all.
Have a
Have a
lovely.
great, have a great rest of Sunday for whom it is Sunday already. And for the rest of us, also enjoy the week that's coming up. Avtar Meher
Okay.
Baba
Meher
Ki Jai.
Baba ki jai.
Jai Baba.
Jai
Meher
Baba.
Baba ki
Baba.
jai.